Just about to start the second edition of the Tea Room Conversation. After the success of the first conversation where we spoke about the journeys of young changemakers, today we are going to talk about how citizens are bringing fresh new impetus and agency to solving social problems. We've got Inderpreet. He's a young person with a very exciting social enterprise that brings in elderly people into civic and public conversations, and also brings society to care for them. We have Nida from the very venerable change.org that has changed so many things around the world and in India, and she'll be talking about what change does. We have Sonia, who's a lawyer, and other than lawyering and appearing in court, she suddenly decided to bring a lot of momentum to collecting funds through bid giving for farmers in Maharashtra. And she started with a very small amount target, but she ended up raising around 20 lakhs. Then we have Ishita from bid giving, and Ishita has been spearheading the leadership in bid giving to really support social campaigns. And then we have Anamika, who is a social activist herself, and has provided this space in the tea room for us to have this conversation. It's a no frills, no expertise, no jargonized conversation, putting the spotlight on people who are really doing their bit to contribute to change.
Actually, I'm working with elderly people. So as I told you, there are 10 old age homes within this small city, Amritsar. So what make me feel like I am youngest in my family. We are 4 siblings, and I do not have that much memories with my grandparents. So it make me feel like कि हाँ मुझे grandparents मेरे होने चाहिए थे, because when I used to visit my friends' home, so grandmother and grandparents, they always like कि उनका ख्याल रख रहे हैं, उनको चीजें दे रहे हैं, तो it always touches me. तो हुआ ऐसे कि when I graduated from my degree, I completed my graduation, so I started looking in the problem. So क्या problem है? So we surveyed all the old age homes. So it is like कि those people are totally isolated from the society. What we find कि our society has transformed in a way कि this problem is not in past decade, because it is evolved through the process. Our lifestyle has changed. There is participation of both gender. So society has undergone a rapid transformation. So this problem is evolved, and we cannot solve this problem in a way that let's make a new old age home. So it's not a solution. So we started कि हम इसको कैसे solve करें. The only way I could find कि इनको engagement होनी चाहिए, because if they engage all other problem, their problem like psychological problem, physiological problem, social, economic, all those problems would be solved. And in our model, we mobilize youth for them. So there would be no ego clash between them, because students are working with the elderly people. They feel like कि हमारे साथ हमारे grandchildren काम कर रहे हैं. They feel like कि हमारे साथ. So this way we started.
Yeah. Vishnu, would you, some of your experiences in your school with your school students, would they mirror the experiences that Inderpreet was talking about how young people are going out into their community and changing things around, how the school itself probably is a hub for social innovation?
I think when we started the school, we knew learning has to be through hands-on approach, and getting the heart and the mind and the hands into it. But we never knew what the context was, because in general, India as a country, at least this generation, has a very low sense of civic action or citizenship. Especially in a city like Gurgaon, where everything is privatized and you virtually buy out essentials, and you essentially do it out of your own personal expenses and expect the government to do it. So our intent was to create authenticity for the project we do. That's one of the learning design principles of our curriculum. And that's when we felt that why don't we use the community as, and the first work was Rahagri. You all know these cycle-friendly, pedestrian-friendly, motorcycle-free day. That is actually a grade 5, grade 6 project in heritage schools. Of course, it's called the Times of India Rahagri now, but it was a project with kids who wanted to set up a bicycle path This is what 5-6 years back. And over the years, and we weave the curriculum around the purpose of deciding, framing a bicycle path for Gurgaon. So entire social sciences, literature, mathematics, everything is fixed into it. Over a period of time, experts were called in, and it evolved into submitting a report to the police commissioner. We were fortunate at that time. Bhartiya, the Joint Police Commissioner for Traffic, was very open to this idea. But she said, look, I can't get a path for you dedicated, but I can give you one day. I think this happened in Colombia too, many years back. It's called Cyclovia, which is a huge movement now. And things worked in our favor. One thing I realized that if you and me go to government officials, there's a certain response. But if kids go, there's 10x more response to it. And we've seen this time and again to it. What's happened post that is kids see themselves as change agents. They see that what I do has a meaning and impact. What I learn has a meaning and impact. So our intent is to create a generation of people sitting in this table. It should not be an exception. It should be the way citizens should be. So,
I think having community engagement amongst children, having children get into different communities and understand how they work, understand their issues and problems helps. It sort of develops them into holistic individuals, and they go on to doing greater things for the community after that. It doesn't take too long for them to mature and understand that certain things are going wrong and those need to be corrected. It's a slow process, but someone has to start and someone has to catapult it. Or catalyze it.
Yeah. Would you like to share your experiences about how media, Tarunis from Quint, and how Quint and other media vehicles are also getting interested in change making, in documenting these stories, not merely as a good story to report on, but to do a plus, take the story forward to some other conclusion where everyone feels good about having contributed to a cause.
Absolutely. So I think what you just said is also very interesting, because one of the purposes of the media in general was also to inform, right? So it's always been about informing the people, and that used to end up being the end point because there was no feedback loop in the media. आप न्यूज़पेपर उठाते थे, आप न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ते थे, बस आपको पता चल जाता था कि क्या हो रहा है, and that was the end of it. Even with television, there was no real feedback. You could write a letter to the editor, but what after that? So, with the advent of digital media, there is this greater engagement where every single individual who's looking at your work, who's looking at your content, looking at the stuff that you're putting out, feels like they're somehow part of it. Like this Facebook Live. Currently I have it running because if somebody comments, this is for everybody who's watching, please comment. If somebody comments, we can always pick it up and we can respond to it. They're part of this tea room discussion without even being here, right? And that's the seamless process that the internet has built for everything, including what all of us here are talking about. The idea of giving time, putting in effort, putting in money in this case, giving back in some way, leading a campaign, contributing to a campaign. It's become like this seamless sort of thing because of the internet. And the maximum viewership on the internet always goes to a media house, right? Because the amount of the purpose of it is to put out a whole lot of content to keep people informed. So somehow I just feel like this idea of like campaigns that we're running, the campaigns that we've run with Bit Giving in the past, the campaign that we're currently running for the CRPF Jawan, all of it sort of easily ties into the purpose of journalism and the purpose of media, where it's a very natural progression. So instead of just informing now, you're actually trying to take it to its logical conclusion. Human interest stories used to be, they still are, they run the best, right? Everybody's like, a human interest story, this is going to do fantastic. But now there is a next step to a human interest story. You don't just chapo it and then forget about it the next day.
It becomes very investigative in nature as well. You want to find out what has happened to these group of individuals if you're championing their cause, and you want to know if their outcome has been met with, they're fine now, if you've been able to help them out. So I think that strikes a chord with a country, in its masses is totally, in touch with its emotions. So India has had a very good impact as of now.
I think that's what it's about also, right? Like in the process of people thinking about change in India is not new. It's something that has been going on forever. what's probably changed is that with internet and like these platforms coming up, various platforms, is that people are no longer, just frustrated in their house saying, okay, fine, this is what I've read in the news, and now I'm like, what can I do about it? So when they start thinking about what can I do about it, there are multiple platforms available where people can actually take that step, think about what is the change that they want to bring, and just do it. It's like as simple as just typing like a few letters on their phone. So that the bridging of that thought of like feeling frustrated, feeling angry about something, or feeling just like a sense of empathy, any emotion, they can now translate it into sort of actionable change, and that is brilliant. I think one of the examples that I can give you is this girl in Bangalore, young girl, IT professional, who got molested on a bus, and what would have happened traditionally is that she went and registered an FIR, but then she would just gone home and cried in front of her friends and family. But what she thought about, and she spent like about 2 days coming to terms with the fact about what had happened to her, and what she decided was that she's not going to keep quiet, and she wants to make noise and make sure that what happened to her doesn't happen to anybody else. And so she started like a petition on Change.org targeting Red Bus. That's the site that she had used to book tickets. And she said, they should be held accountable as well. Why should only just I go to the police and say what's happening with my case? I booked this ticket. And they need to come, Red Bus also needs to own its share of responsibility. And she got about like 1 lakh signatures in like a few weeks, and that got like Red Bus's attention. She sat down across the table with them. She had like a series of things which affected her. Like she said, I want this, this, and this. Red Bus sat down and said, okay, fine, we're willing. This is the technology that we have. This is what we're willing to do. They came up with like GPS tracking, CCTVs, such a simple thing as like a dedicated women's helpline wasn't there. And so it's just about people realizing that it's not just like I can just what happened to me, and I can go back home and just cry about it. But no, I'm going to take that one step further and do something about it. And just that one girl coming up with sort of a solution-oriented way of thinking has helped so many other women. And so it's just about sort of bridging those gaps and thinking about like no longer being in that state of like, oh, I want to do something, I don't know what I can do, but just going ahead and doing it because there are platforms available.
Exactly. The point, like if I think about if I did not have the technology, or if I did not have BitGiving as a platform, what would I have done? I would have written a check probably. I would have still gone ahead and helped, but at an individual level.
Yeah.
What the media has been able to do, the digital media, the social media, platforms like BitGiving, opened up the whole box for me and say, I can multiply it many-fold. I can reach out to more and more people who probably feel as strongly about it, or probably more strongly about it as I do, and which is what happened. Even when we were growing up, and I'm kind of dating myself when I say that, but we were growing up, it was people did make change, but it was probably I want to send this little kid to school. My help at home, I'm helping her. Now, with these platforms which are available, you can actually bring about a change, not just one person, but maybe hundreds and thousands of people.
Yeah.
And the topic of today's conversation about everyone being a change maker, it's so easy, and it doesn't take, except for your intent, it really doesn't take much. It's as simple as that. Okay.
I think another space that platforms like BitGiving and the internet in general open up is spaces for people who otherwise may not actually have been able to contribute in any way. I mean, think about, so if as a woman, let's talk about gender in this case, as a woman, if I happen to come from a family that wasn't particularly open about my movement at certain times of the day or night, my actual physical involvement in giving back might have been severely reduced. But like you said, that girl who thought about a solution-oriented approach to a problem and used her access to the internet to try and fix it, immediately opened up a whole new space for her to approach a problem from. The same way, I mean, for the differently abled, for several other people who have access to the internet, who have that privilege of having access to the internet, I think it also opens up a whole new way to approach problem solving, and we don't just begin to treat the internet as when I was growing up, one of those one of those things that was privileged because at the time not with our internet day. So I think that it takes away from that significantly.
I'll take it actually one step further. It's not just on the internet. Internet is sort of like, it's just platforms like Change.org with giving. It's just like a starting point. What is really interesting and fascinating to see is how like a campaign is no longer one person running, but like it becomes into a movement. It just turns into like sort of this organic movement where like many people join and they start talking, they start like using different platforms to engage. There's WhatsApp, there's Facebook, there's Twitter. Like it just becomes sort of a community of people who rally behind an issue. Like just a recent example of like Delhi pollution, right? Like the day after Diwali, like Delhi just woke up to like this horrible smog. There were 600 petitions which were started on Change.org on that day. And 600 petitions in one day targeting the Delhi government got them to like, okay, what's happening? Like we need to do something about it. And so they came to us and said, what can we do? And they said, why don't you ask people? And that's what they did. Like the cabinet minister just sent out a mail saying, tell me what are the solutions that the government can bring about, and what is it that you can do in your personal capacity. You won't believe it, like 15,000 amazing comments, solutions came out from that. And people were willing to forego of like driving to work, forget about like carpooling, just ban all cars for like 7 days. Very interesting solutions came from that. And now we're at that point where the government is thinking, okay, you know what, we're going to think of a Delhi action plan, but we're not going to think of it in isolation. We're going to get the citizens involved. And that's the next process, is to do that consultation with the citizens and like getting everybody together. So it's not just about like one person starting a petition and then ending it there. It just sort of becomes sort of like a bigger movement, that more and more people then become a part of.
Another aspect to this, and this is part of a learning through the last decade of working on citizenship with kids. When we started Community Bound Project, the first initial reaction is fundraising. And we raised money like this. It's not a joke. And at times we realized the power schools have. Because today, kids are excited. The parents always want to do something good because they're not doing anything meaningful in their own sense of self. It's so easy to raise money. And we said, look, money raising is not a way of citizenship. We put a stop. Second, we put a stop is around campaigns. Because the first thing kids end up doing is quickly go to the markets, go to the streets, raise awareness, put posters, which is all great, but like many things, it just fizzles out because that's not systemic. So now what we've realized is part of building citizenship is creating a sense of know-how. How do you find your way in through how government or how change happens in a civil society? And that's taken a long time. So now, if any kid comes and says that I want to raise money, we said no. Anybody comes and says I'm going to go to Galleria Market or I'm going to go to downtown city center in Cyber City, I'm going to do a dharna. No, we don't want to carry photos. We said we're going to take projects and you're going to work your way through, which means it includes figuring out the problem, defining the problem statement, meeting the stakeholders, right? Involving NGOs and partners and people in the civic society who already specialize in doing this. Create a draft paper, get feedback and input, come up with some certain solution, and figure out ways to implement. And then you raise funds, and then you do a campaign. And that's taken time. Part of the problem is none of us, including ourselves. Now, I'm a civics teacher too, and economic. I didn't know how to do many of these things. How do I find an idea? Where do I have to go? In Gurgaon especially, I think Delhi is still more organized. And I would say this city is far more organized than many cities in this country. Gurgaon has multiple agencies. Even the government officials would not know who's responsible for what. Am I responsible for lighting? Which part of the road is mine? Does it belong to the police commissionerate? Does it belong to the GDA which is coming up now, or does it belong to the NHAI? With the 3 highways part. So it's a mess. Part of our learning is for the kids and ourselves is figuring out how to maneuver this government bureaucracy. And I think that should also be a focus of building citizenship. How do I file an RTI? RTI is not the end of it, but it's a good beginning. What happens post that? In fact, I think Renu and Garima would know the ambulance project we are doing right now, or even the women's safety project. So one thing, I think women's safety is the classic examples. Initially, we wanted to raise awareness about creating safe spaces for women in Gurgaon. And kids first went with posters. It doesn't work. So now you start working with NGOs, working with the police, working with the local municipal commissioner himself, to figuring out a place, giving ratings various, and already good work has happened in that space. Our kids are developing an app right now too. So I think somebody said systemic thinking. And that's so important than doing knee-jerk.
Just responsive, reactive stuff.
In fact, just to add on this Diwali thing, a lot of parents came to us and said, let's do a Dharna walk the day after Diwali. We said no to it. Because if we do this, it's just going to fizzle out, and that's what it's fizzled out.
See, I think what I like about what you're saying, Vishnu, is that you're creating the culture in your students of being accountable and responsible, and not just being like whiners and a bunch of people who are raising slogans. So I think that is the key. Even amongst ourselves, when we see people who are making a difference, these are people who decided to take action. They were just not whining. They said, let's do something about it, and then we'll figure out. If there are people who give me paperwork or whatever, we figure it out. But the point is not to whine and complain. The point is do something.
And do it sensibly.
Do it sensibly and responsibly.
And that sensibility is improving by the day. Like 2011 is when Change.org started. Like almost all the petitions from like mere ghar ke aage poda pada hai, Prime Minister, please fix it. To policy level decisions, Prime Minister, please fix it. We've seen that change in the past 5 years, where people they know who they're asking, what they're asking, how they want to ask that question. Like the questions that people are answering on their own, just like figuring things out on their own, is incredible. And that's the thing about when movement becomes big enough, people start thinking, okay, now I need to figure out. I'm not going to just start a petition for the sake of starting a petition, or start a campaign on bid giving for the sake of starting a campaign. What comes next? To what you were talking about. Like already the fact that you're thinking about what comes next is a great step. It's a huge step.
It's also kind of slowed or mellowed down the rhetoric and more action.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
It's very easy to be oratory and rhetoric in nature, and say a lot of great things, bring in that emotion, stir it. But again, as you rightly said, if you fizzle out, have a proper action plan, which makes a lot of sense.
And I think the
And it's
streamlined sort of conversation does start happening. I think what we've seen with a lot of, I think I've been following Change.org for a very long time, even on big giving. Whenever there's a conversation that starts from either a petition starter or a campaigner at our end, it goes way beyond that. We've seen solutions come out of that.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's just been, I want to do something about it, I'm starting this campaign. Before you know it, there are like 20 other partners who've joined in, there are 20 other people who can influence different communities coming in to make it happen. And that I think we're again in a good space in time where we have all those tools to be able to do that. One Facebook post can change a lot, right? And again, not just platforms like us, like just the communication channels that we have or the information that we have on our hands. One Google search can tell us what the metrics are, right? And sometimes those metrics are strong enough or scary enough for you to take a leap, and that's when you will Google again and find how you can do that. And I think we're in a very good space that all those opportunities are available to us, and maybe that's why we're seeing so many individuals become change makers. Probably this was not possible 10 years back. Probably, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't possible 10 years back. It meant leaving a lot aside to be able to make that change. Today, you can go ahead with your life the way it is and still do something, right, which gives you happiness, it gives you, creates an impact in some way or the other. I think it's exciting times.
So, sorry, no, you first.
No, I was just kind of feeling to what you said is when I was campaigning on Twitter, and especially on Twitter, not so much on Facebook, because Facebook I have limited influencers, but on Twitter I made it a point to target the young. And I said, things like, I would tweet about, like, can you forgo your cup of coffee in the morning and donate it for the farmers? And if it's like, I didn't have my morning cup of tea at Cafe Coffee Day or at Starbucks, but I gave the money instead to the campaign. And that is where I started seeing in the small denominations coming in, which was fantastic. And I was telling the volunteer from Bid Giving who was working with me that I want to highlight the small change. I want to highlight the small amount that are coming in, so that most capable were giving whatever they were doing, but these were the key for me, and that was fantastic to see. That was very fulfilling.
And we've seen that happen. I think there have been times when the conversation's gone really strong.
Right.
Majority of the conversions or the kind of money that starts coming in is small amounts of money and coming again and again because people are actually coming back, following up on the story and saying that okay, I'm going to put some more. Oh, it's at 49%, let me take it to 50%, and that sort of buy-in into any sort of change is what I'm pretty sure that happens on change as well. Like oh, we've crossed one milestone, we're going to cross the other one, and it's incremental. So that's like I was saying, it's kind of interesting to see how the conversation and people coming in is the different communities that are being tapped in because we in different verticals or spaces or silos are being able to intermingle all these communities together. All of us think very differently.
Yeah,
We think from the perspective from where we are. Yeah.
No, I feel this is giving rise to community building. Like people were working in isolation and people were doing things and they were not connected to each other. Now what happens is when you're talking about the milestone or the amount, so somewhere where people are feeling that they want to do something and then they're able to take that on from wherever it is and everybody feels part of that bigger community, and that brings us to the topic today, that how does everybody, while we could be thinking of becoming a change maker, there is something which is holds us back. That slight nudge is provided by the community, and the conversion to the community that way is higher.
This is a little funny. I felt a little funny, at one point. So during the campaign, I think I started thinking about it so much. I went for a job interview. I was searching for a job then, and this was at Razor Bay, the place where I currently work at. And I had 6 hours of an interview, and in between that interview, I actually told the HR lady, now my colleague, listen, I'm running a campaign. I didn't care about what you might think about or what people people around me thought about it. I just told her, listen, I'm running a campaign on bit giving. It's for the Marathwada farmers. I'm raising money. I need your help. You have an office full of people. Can you please cascade the word? Can you please tell them? And I didn't leave a moment. I said, this is great. This is a place with a lot of people I don't know. I want to pass the word. I want to spread the message. And she did. She spread the message. A couple of days later, I got the job and I came in. My first day of work, I said, hey, I'm running a campaign. I want all of you to do it. And a lot of them did. And that was uncharacteristic of me, because until then I wasn't the kind who go out publicly in front of strangers and say, hey, I'm running a campaign, I want to make a change, I want to do this and that. I actually went and did it without any hesitation. The hesitation just went away.
Right. And fantastic, Emily, because I can relate to that. I find it very difficult to ask something for myself, like even for a raise. I would have a difficult time having a conversation with my boss. But this was, I found that, I could openly talk about it. I could openly talk about, raise all the points. I could say, here's what we do, talk about numbers. Very, very uninhibited conversations. And I absolutely felt no shame in asking people for money. So it was,
We love people like you.
My own friends who've known me for a very long time came up and said, what are you doing? Wow, you're feeling so strongly about something. यहाँ बैंगलोर में भी पानी नहीं है हमारे लिए, तो मराठवाड़ा के लिए कैंपेन कर रहे हैं. I was like, are you serious? Do you know the extent of that problem and how it's affecting them? Jokes apart, look at what's really happening and do something.
And did your confidence grow as you got more support, or did it
the first day when I started getting these comments, it kind of put me down for a while there. And I remember telling Anurag, I told Anurag, and I had that WhatsApp message, I can't believe the things people are saying. I'm really shocked. I thought that people had a good side to them, a side that wanted them to do good things for the community, but I hear something else. But he said, don't worry, this happens with a lot of people, but keep going on and you'll see the change.
By and large, I think people want to make a difference. No one gets up in the morning and say, I'm going to take other people's happiness away today. They want to do something good, right? But yes, it is kind of interesting to see that there are pockets in the society which would hold certain prejudices very strongly enough not to even feel good about themselves, because giving something makes you feel good about yourself. But they were very, loyal to the prejudices.
It opened something. They thought about it.
So,
started thinking about
loudly wondering, I'm just wondering, hearing, all of you speak, has the game really changed? When we talk about sort of citizens as change makers, we are not really talking about good Samaritan work in the way it used to happen. I mean, all your experiences and Ishita, this is what you're talking about, right? It's not merely good Samaritan work. You're pushing for, in a sense, large scale. Even if your campaign is not able to do, you want to bring in a discourse which is pushing for institutional change,
Yes.
pushing for system change, really thinking about not really this story about the CRPF Jawan to whom you're sort of building support to and currently supporting, but what next? So there's a sort of ethical responsibility to your change-making act, which is very different from any earlier time.
Similar, I want to ask uh, how we can empower those people who are from the emerging rural areas, because I was born and brought up in a rural area, so I got an opportunity and sitting with you people. So, but what about those people who? How could we empower them? Because this is nothing like a few people. Look, I stand for you. I will I will start a campaign for you. Those people are really in few number. So how we can empower those people who could come and start their campaign on their own.
Yeah, so I think that's that's something that all of us at platforms are working towards anyway. We realize that we've only scratched the surface with the kind of change that we've done. We've obviously reached out to people who are already on the internet, or already do have the resources to be so. But I think the next step of the great win for a lot of us is when everybody knows that these are options that are available to them. I think the biggest win for us is when somebody from a really small town decides to do something, right? Because somewhere the communication reached them. I remember there was a campaign of, again, somebody who came from a small village in Assam, had, ended up going to IIT Mumbai. But years later, he raised money to be able to build a library there. And I think some of it went back. And then we saw a lot of feedback coming back from there as well. So I think it's a slow process, but all of us want, I think it's when it grows and when we start reaching out to more and more people, they know that these are options available to them. They can talk about the problems in their city or in their zilla or in their village, and probably start a petition about it or fundraise for a tube well. All those opportunities are there. All of them are on Facebook, or on, probably not on Twitter, but they are on Facebook and they are in the universe somewhere. So
there's awareness. I remember coming back from, I think, Greater Noida to Delhi, and I was in an Ola, and I have this habit of talking to the cabbies because there's a source of information. Oh my God, you know everything about the country that's going on there. So he started talking to me about RTIs, and he said, well, how does one file an RTI? He had a very solid complaint. He said, "Mere jile mein bijli nahi hai." But when I went to talk to the panchayat, they said that abhi time lagega. But when he actually went and connected with the board, the electricity board, they said, "आपके घर में तो होना चाहिए अभी तक, because on paper the bijli is there." So he said, "I want to file a complaint, an RTI, and I want to see what happens." So that in itself was that he knew the word RTI, he knew what he needs to do, he had done the groundwork. All he needed was some nuggets of information, which probably is available, online. I gave him a few links. And I told him if he wants a lawyer, I can probably put an application for it. But that's the point. And to your point about you sitting with us, I think on the contrary, I think we are privileged to be sitting with you. Because if you are one of those people who are coming from a small town, and all of us, I think we are coming from small towns and cities, and we're all sitting here. And that's the power that has happened in the past few years. And I'm sure it will kind of just multiply and escalate and all over the country. So I think as someone who believes in and likes to be positive about it, I'm sure that there's a lot that's happening.
I think changemakers for us are also people who end up signing a petition or end up contributing to a campaign or end up posting about it, sharing about it. And I think we've spoken about this quite a lot in the past as well as an organization, because for us, when we think about somebody coming and making the effort to be able to take that one step, they've done what they can. And more or less, like, whenever they end up contributing on BitGiving, we see that they leave something behind. They do talk about why, or they do talk about what led to it. And that's interesting. That's where the conversation is starting. And I think we've seen cases where people have literally called us and said, take a check, or take cash from us, like whatever. We want to put in money, we want to put 50 rupees, 100 rupees, 200 rupees, and they've done that, right? So I think that's the next spectrum of it, that even by just becoming a part of the campaign or sharing, there's so much more that they do because
And we can't underestimate the power of like the mobile phone, you know. Like internet is like if the mobile internet penetration in India is going to get like you know, in UP there's a small town called Shahjahanpur, and they have like a drain. Well, it was a river before. Now it was turning into a drain, and the RWA there was you know thinking about what can we do, and only one person was a Change.org user, and he started the petition. Okay, and just it got about like I think 500 signatures. Okay, but because it was Change.org Hindi platform. Everybody saw it. They wanted to sign it. They created email accounts to sign the petition. You know, and that's it. Like the district magistrate immediately got like staff together. The drains became like a river again. So you know, it's already happening. Already, like in many small towns and villages, people are raising issues, and only on their mobile phone. Nobody has laptops.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just kind of inviting Garima and Renu to jump into the conversation whenever you feel like and talk about the schools that are doing interesting work as part of this. Yeah, turning it.
Actually, no, go ahead. I just wanted to change the conversation around a little bit.
Yeah,
because we're all being really, really positive about everything, and that's fantastic. I mean, that's the best thing about it. But I did want to know, like, the first thing that I happened to say when I jumped into this before we started the Facebook Live was we're trying to grapple with the challenge of what next, right? So I wanted to hear from all of you guys, what are the challenges you face? I mean, I'm sure you have that red list on the left side of your notebooks that says, ye theek karna hai, ye nahi ho raha hai. So what are those? We're hearing a lot about what's working, what's not working.
I want to know in terms of regulatory aspects, what are the challenges?
I think one of the biggest challenges is getting the decision makers to accept that it is okay to directly speak to people. You know, that's like one of the biggest challenges that we face. Like decision makers are so, whether like all politicians, not just politicians, bureaucrats as well. When they come to power, they hold power. They feel that there is like a system in place, and we will communicate with people through that system. So, अगर RTI आएगी, उसका reply करेंगे. अगर written में application आएगी, तो हम उसका reply करेंगे. What is this like online petition? What are you saying? But we've seen that change as well. You know, people are realizing with Twitter being what it is and everything else around it, Change.org being what it is, Bitgiving being what it is, decision makers are coming to that point where they say it is in our best interest for our public image to start reaching out to people. And that's a challenge, and that challenge is being overcome by like just more and more people coming together and finding out interesting ways of how to reach those decision makers. I'll give you an example. In Bangalore, there's a lake called Bellandur. Okay, and it caught fire. Everybody saw There's an IT professional who used to take that route every day to go to work. She said, "Okay, fine, I'm going to start a Change.org petition." She started a petition. It's the first step. The next step, she asked the same question. Like, what do I do with this signatures? Nobody's responding. The chief minister is not responding. Nobody's doing anything. The media is going on reporting about how bad this division is, but that's where it is stuck. So what she did was, she said, I want to get like a group of people together who actually think about how to take this campaign forward. So she started a community on Facebook. She left beyond Change.org, she started a community on Facebook. And what this community did was they just figured out within themselves what are the strengths that they're bringing to make the campaign a victory. So there was a guy who said, I can provide this support. This girl saying, okay, I can provide, I can actually organize something. Let's go meet the chief minister. So they did like a Twitter bomb on the chief minister, got him to respond because so many people were sending out tweets at him in one day to the next day, the next day. The chief minister responded. They went and met him. The community sort of got to that point where they went and met him and they said, okay, fine, this is great. What are you going to do? Let's sit together, figure out a solution around this. So the point that I'm trying to make is that beyond just somebody signing a petition or beyond just somebody contributing money, the moment it becomes like, it gives like people have like, gets like a face. That's when it becomes real. And that's what like the decision makers are also are feeling, you know, like 600 petitions on Delhi pollution. Yes, I want to see what these people have to say. I want to hear what they have to say. Let's think of solutions together.
There's a lot of skepticism to your point about, you know, we are being positive, you know, given my profession, we are born skeptics. So whenever I see like, I mean, not to put you on the spot, but whenever I see like, you know, 5 lakh people sign change, I'm like, oh, how many of these are fake accounts? You know, because that's the way I've been trained to think. And that's, no, I'm not put you on the spot. But if I can think like that, the person sitting on the government side will probably think manifold like that, right? Yeah. He will say all of these are bogus. ये किसी एक जने ने 5 lakh email account खोल के बनाया है. That's what they do day in day out. So he will see the same. So but that is one of the biggest challenge to say, and which is what I kept harping about transparency. Is if I have the details of the individual. So when Change.org creates something, you know, what are they asking me for? What kind of information do they have to say that I exist as an individual? You know, and what is my stake in it? What is my vested interest in it? So these are kind of things when you start when you start making virtual people real, you know, people will take you seriously. So I don't think that it's a big hurdle to cross. I think it's just about, again, to your point, being systematic thinkers, saying, you know, we are not just doing it to create noise. We are doing this to bring about a change. So I think that's.
And I think there's a part of, you know, it is evolving. I think all platforms, and considering you guys are in the digital space as well, you understand how fast things evolve. Yeah. We started with giving, and Shashi's been privy to how we start and everything. It was a completely different vision. It was fronted by organizations. Organizations were running crowdfunding campaigns. That's how we started out. Today, majority of our campaigns are with giving and individuals. And that's how it evolves. I think the initial issue was to sort of figure out who's going to raise this money, what is the community that we're going to tap into, how can we diversify the community, how can we get a fresh perspective, otherwise we're just another retail fundraising platform. What's changed over a period of time is people have added their own things, right? Like, I remember every time we get a campaign which is so off, and that happens a lot with us, it's absolutely different to any sort of campaign we've seen before. Our entire team for a minute just goes like, okay, you know, somebody's trying to use the platform in a different way. Sometime last year, I remember the nationalized hockey team tweeted to us, and we'd never done sports campaigns before that. We didn't even know that there was an ice hockey team, right? So when that campaign came in, we all were just like, okay, they actually thought that they can, you know, let's just get the sponsorships aside and go to people and tell them that a national team exists. And the conversation was phenomenal. After that, the number of sportsmen who've raised money is you know, people are actually defining how they want to use the platforms. Yeah. We're not doing that for them. It's pretty much on, you know, we're talking about it and we're talking about all the success stories, but it's evolving pretty much on its own. And that's the part. I think all we're striving for is giving people an open platform to be able to do what they want to, in ways that it's not harmful for anybody, but
that's the challenge.
You know, but the constraint really is inertia.
Yeah.
If you really look at it, I mean, you know, I want to go back to the point that Vishnu made about institutions playing a role in facilitating systemic thinking. So it need not be heritage school only, right?
Yeah.
Or the heritage group. It could be any school that decides to be a Changemaker school.
Definitely.
And you don't need to put any labels to it. So, for instance, parents are big stakeholders in this. If you know, it's not as if parents do not want schools that are only teaching well, because learning outcomes are now, you know, completely different than aapko achhe number mile ya nahi. So parents are big stakeholders in this. What prevents a parent to sort of put you know, as citizen pressure on schools to say, this is what we want the school to, you know, to sort of impart as learning outcomes to our children. And so I think the real stuff is about people's ability to recognize, but I think there is, you know, sort of a deep inertia built into a system, because we are only learning to get jobs. We are only doing things to get something and not really thinking, you know, taking the thinking through. And that's where I think those of you all who've got into sort of active change making, you know, are thinking differently. I heard Sonia speak, for instance, that, you know, about your own skepticism, and, you know, here's a skeptic to a change maker journey. and now she's thinking ahead. Okay, so what? I have raised 20 lakhs for farmers, but that's not enough. So it almost becomes an addiction, and now you're thinking ahead of what you can do. So I think
Great addiction to have. I think this is one of those addictions we should probably like propagate. This is ये addiction ठीक है ये वाला नहीं.
so tell us about. Sorry, Vishnu. Yeah.
No, I can.
So tell us about how you all are thinking. How is Quint thinking about how will this story about supporting a CRPF Jawan, where will it how do you see you exiting out of it, or where does it end?
So we have like all these campaigns, we have set goal that we're looking at. So actually before the CRPF one, I'd like to talk about the Choti Nirbhaya campaign that we did with Big Giving, because that one was, like I said, it was a really big success. I don't know, I'm sure you all heard, there was this child who was raped last year, and she was struggling to survive in hospital for a while. And the thing was, her family, they were earning money on dihadi, and with this child in the hospital, nobody was earning any money because they were there with her, and there was no money coming in, and the medical bills were piling up. And this girl was basically, I mean, just the story of her is heartbreaking enough, but in terms of actually moving beyond the fact that as a child she was raped, and giving her opportunities later in life to actually do something beyond that, was something that we were all struggling to figure out. How do we approach this? How do we do this? We can say, "Acha, theek hai, we can pay her medical bills. That will get her through this point." What then? What if she doesn't have the money to get an education? What then? So then, in that case, her family might decide that shadi karwa do. That is her custom is, and she might get stuck in something else. So okay, fine, education. What then? And who's to say that that money will go towards her education? Her family is struggling. They don't have money to feed themselves. How do you ensure that that money goes to education? Again, so now it has to be sustainable. We need to look after the family for the child to get educated. All of these things sort of like built up on each other. And we went, okay, so there is a certain amount of money that we need to manage to get for this out of this, to think about a future that could be 20 years from now. And but what money is enough for that? So then the question was, what do we do with that money? And that's the next thing. You can't just hand it over in bulk and expect it to go in the right place. So there was this grand plan that had to be established about how the money needs to be set aside, and there is also the ethical and moral dilemma of how you make these decisions for a family, because I mean, it is a money. Who are you to decide how to give it to them? But at the same time, there are all of these other questions of what is likely to happen if you just give it in bulk. Has the family ever dealt with money in this form? So you can't expect all of these things. So there was this coming back to the question of how the Quint is thinking about dealing with these things. It took a lot of time and effort to convert. हमें कुछ अच्छा करना है. We are disgusted by what happened. We need to figure something out. To okay, this is how we're going to approach it. And coming back to what we discussed in the beginning, yeah, the internet was a platform where it began, but that was used in the larger idea of getting Choti Nirbhaya 20 years later, an education, a job, a life beyond the fact that this had happened to her.
And also there are certain things that the other challenge is that there are certain things money can't really bring a solution to, like the fundamental trauma that it's caused her family as well. Right? Yeah. No amount of money can really solve that. How are they going to be able to change their mindset towards, letting her out into the open world?
So actually, I think two things happened. I clearly remember having this discussion with Ritu when she called me and she said, I want to do something about Choti Nirbhaya. And what I've seen, like, Big Giving, we work a lot with different media outfits, and we've seen over a period of time, typically people in the newsroom who are covering a particular story are now coming back and saying that we want to do something more about it, and that's exactly how that happened. What I think happened beyond the money being collected, and yes, it was this long process of figuring out where the money is going to go, was that when the parents or when the family of Choti Nirbhaya realized that there were more than 100 people would come together to make sure that their daughter had a better life tomorrow, it takes the stigma away. Because no more is there a stigma that people ready to start. And I think that just that feeling of knowing that you're not alone, and yes, this was bad and we have a lot to deal with, but there are people out there we don't even know who's standing beside it, makes a huge difference. And I've seen campaigners even raising money for themselves, seeing money coming in, they're complete, the way they think about things change. Because they're like, okay, we thought this was our battle, and we have to deal with this. But today, I have 200, 400, sometimes 5 lakh people standing behind me to make this happen. I'm pretty much probably doing something right. And that's what's been propagating, and that's how it's been evolving. And I think that's one of the biggest things that came out of the Chote Nimbaya campaign.
Definitely.
We know for a fact she's going to get an education and everything, but I'm sure the family just knew that there were people out there who were ready to.
Absolutely. When we get stuck, like when the person starts the petition, gets like stuck, like saying, I don't know what to do, my response to him is just ask the people who signed the petition. Crowdsource it. Let the solutions come from people who signed it, and you wouldn't believe it. It's one thing of like 5 people sitting in a room discussing, this is what I think the solution can be, this is what I think. And there's another thing, when you get like 5,000, 50,000, 5 lakh people to come up with like ideas, and the ideas that come are incredible. So even for like any campaign, when you're stuck, just crowdsource it, just ask the people, and that will do 2 things. One is it will get them thinking about beyond like just signing on.
Absolutely. And I adding on to that, I remember when we were raising money for Changemakers, and that was a big campaign, right? And a lot of money was raised in a very short period of time. But there was a point when that campaign also got stuck. And weirdly enough, there were volunteers who had given money, who put together a complete live event, like pulled in like Indian Ocean, free space, free food, everything, and asked people to get their dogs, and they raised like 5 lakhs in one night. So the fact was, that's what happens, right? When people get connected, there is so much more that they can bring on the table apart from just money and signing, and that's a community that you build. That if you engage with them in the right way over a longer period of time, they add so much more value, right?
Vishnu.
Yeah, sir.
No, you wanted to make a point at that
I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, giving a lot of ideas how to take our work forward. In fact, we've just started. It's been a year now. Heritage Center for Active Citizenship. So it's a full-time. Exactly the idea of working with people like Change.org or BitGiving. But I share a part of the skepticism which you just shared. I mean, skepticism is the wrong word. I think cautiousness is a better word. I think one of my biggest worries is moving towards the armchair citizenship. Like I can see in my own society post Diwali, like a lot of people think they've done their best by posting or I think WhatsApp, Facebook, I think they're all been avenues for us to express what we are. And I think the need is met for many. I've posted it. This one is done. I see it in kids too. I mean, we need to tell them that look, I don't care about your post and my way of this one.
You're right. And I think we're thankfully at a space where we do ask questions. It's not just my brother told me that this is what we should do, and like, we're asking questions every day. Even whatever's happening on WhatsApp, Facebook, with the Delhi pollution thing, it did lead to a sizable conversation. And a lot of people talking about solutions. Even the demonetization that's being talked about right now. Everybody's talking about solutions in closed doors. Some of that conversation is going on Facebook, and you never know what picks up, right? And I think yes, armchair activism is something that's probably not going to add. But weirdly enough, we're in a society where even armchair activism is leading.
Yeah, we have a long way to go. So it's good.
It is
Something is there.
Something is there. Yeah. So it's let's just see how it goes.
Beneficiary benefactor framework. That framework is long gone. So that it is ethical, that it needs engagement, that it is pushing for solutions that are systemic and work for everyone, not for a privileged few. That it is leading to society to reorganize itself around a new operating principle. So it is not only about this CRPF Jawan, it is about every such person who needs not only the state to discharge its responsibilities, but citizens to ensure that the state is discharging responsibility.
See,
So that's where I think the real change-making impetus is. And if we all move in that curve, I think that everyone being a change-maker world sort of gets created.
I can add one more point, which is I think it's rightly articulated. One more thing is I don't think we should circumvent the system. In a lot of ways, just the way in Gurgaon we have privatized some of the amenities you're supposed to have. We can privatize, for example, building a library for Gurgaon. Right? One way is just raise money and build a private library. Another way is to work with the government, push them to open the district library. They're two different things. The easier one is to actually open a private library, given the kind of money many parents have. But the tougher part, and I think what is going to help children to grow up as change agents, is to push the district commissioner, come what may, to open the district library.
And it's more sustainable.
Yeah.
Because what you're creating is the responsibility of the state to run it for years to come.
That's right.
Whereas the private space may fizzle out after the original benefactor is kind of not there.
So,
And
although I
talking
should say
about-
there is space for everybody and every kind of work. If somebody wants to open a private library, that's great. But because of this conversation, I think you need to keep that in mind too. The system should not be undermined.
Right, and what Shashi said, the list of things that he mentioned, there's one more thing I feel is that all the issues that we are talking about, because somewhere they touch us personally. So that is why we are part of that problem. So we are part of the problem solving mode. And your school, like Heritage, there are other Changemaker schools also in Ashoka. So if you look at the work that they are doing, they are looking at their immediate surroundings. Things, a school, a Heritage in Gurgaon and a Gramin Shiksha Kendra in Sawai Madhopur, they are two different contexts. And so they are looking at their own context and they're responding to their context. So, it is really important what is affecting us, and based on that, we start the campaign, and the campaign can be in different ways. Right now we're talking about online, but in a place like that, there would be a different form and shape of the campaign. The engagement would be different. But the problem is personal. So every time all of us sitting on this table when we're talking of problems, because it has touched me somewhere, whether it is a CRPF Jawan or it is a lake in Bangalore or something, as a citizen it has touched me somewhere, and that is why I decided to start the petition, or so that personal thing is very important.
I think it's also in terms of like skepticism. I was a journalist before, okay, so I came with my baggage of skepticism to this job. And every time, like, in a campaign, deciding is like sort of the first step, right? And then the person starts the petition, then starts giving people like different things to do to take the campaign forward. So I remember one of the first campaigns that I was sort of supporting the person started the petition on was that he had to basically call a government office, like get people to call a government office. And he said, koi nahi kare. I said, no, nobody's going to do it, like people have signed the petition, it's not going to happen. 50% people who signed the petition actually called the decision. Then he wanted to write handwritten letters because it was a government office. And I said, I don't think so. Like obviously just between me and my colleagues, I said, nahi karega. I was surprised again. So just it was 25% people who actually sent like those written letters. But that thing of just like people, we think that we let our skepticism also sort of overpower us. We're like, no, nobody's going to do it. You get people to that point where like a cabinet minister is sending them an email saying come up with solutions. 15,000 people will respond. You get them to a point where like he's saying let's have a consultation. Maybe 10% of that people will show up, but they will show up. So that is changing, as well. Like people are getting over their skepticism as well and saying what's next? Tell me what I can do next. I've already signed a petition. What's next?
Those are positive.
Yeah.
I think from everything that we're talking about, I think the biggest thing actually the bottom line of all of this is clearly people want to do something.
Yes.
And they're really, really desperate to do something. They just don't know how or what avenues to go through. And all of these things are opening up. When we were much younger, blind school ko donate kar diya. Go to the basic things that you would end up doing. And then there was a skepticism about that also, because there would be people coming door to door and you didn't know if they were, legitimate or not. The fact that there are so many options for so many things, and you can donate, you can volunteer, you can write a letter, you can make a phone call. It's telling people, look, we know you want to do something. And I think the implicit trust that we're also putting in the people, where we're saying, हमें पता है कि तुम्हें कुछ करना है, तो ये करो, is also telling them, hey, okay, so the flip side is they're listening and they're saying, hey, somebody believes that we're going to do this, so let's do it.
But as organizations that facilitate change, provide platforms, what are the issues that you face on an organizational level that stop you from achieving, going ahead further? What are those things that essentially stop you and, that you see today is becoming a barrier? Do you have those barriers? I'm pretty sure that in a country which is still growing and, moving,
I think initially
where regulations change.
when we started out, crowdfunding as a concept didn't exist. So I think one of the biggest barriers that we faced was to get people to understand that these were possibilities, right? There is a steep learning curve which is attached to anything new. There is also a steep learning curve for people who start the platform because they don't know how it's going to evolve, and that's the deal with anything digital. Even with Change.org, I'm pretty sure when they entered into it, both these platforms are so cultural. When I talk about crowdfunding in India, I say it's such a cultural thing. What people give to, how much they give, how many times they give. It all comes from our culture. It comes from the skepticism. It comes from who's telling me to put in money. It comes from where did I get the information and how legit do I think it is. All of that put together, I think those were the challenges. Sort of breaking down all those prejudices that existed. That I don't want to go out and ask people for money. Or I don't want to go and ask people to sign. Why am I doing this? Or why, they're going to ask me whether the money is going to my bank account. And these were all questions that we got again and again. And I think over a period of time, we built the structure in such a way to be able to close a lot of those. Yeah. And I think with every successful campaign, and that's why we push and we scream on the top of our voices when there's a success, is because with every successful campaign, a bunch of people feel a little more comfortable with the platforms that we're running. And they feel that, okay, this is something that we can do. Right? Sonia raising money, or you raising money, or Quint raising money. All these guys at some point have influenced people saying that, we come with our personal credibility and we're doing this and we've done it successfully. It's going to impact 10 more people and they're going to do something more. So it's been a long process.
It's a continuous process.
It's a continuous process as well.
In 2011 when Change.org, there was like a few thousand people who and the questions were the same. And I was a journalist at that time, so I also asked that question. I said, "Kaam karte hai? Does it work?" We're like 50 lakh people strong now, and 1/3 of those people have already experienced being part of like some sort of a winning campaign. So that process is just, it took 5 years, and it's a continuous process. Keep telling people, yes, it works. Here, this person has won. This is what that person was asking for. You should start a campaign of your own, and that build the trust in, not just trust in the platform, but people trusting themselves that they can also be like part of it. Is a process that I'm really excited to be part of, and like I'm sure everybody on this table is excited to be part of.
And there's also opportunity, right? Because if you look at people today, they don't want to just read the news, and they don't want to just do a recurring donation to an organization every month. They want to be involved in something much bigger. We always keep on saying this. It was like on BitGiving, on Change, or any of these platforms, you're becoming a part of a story. Right? Whenever you're sharing a Quint story, or whenever you're signing a petition, or if you're becoming a part of the story because it impacted you, you want more people to know about it. And I think that's what gets people going. That's the opportunity that we saw from a point of view, is that everybody wants to say that,
I think the level of transparency has improved there.
Yes.
But I feel that today we're raising money on behalf of, say, an NGO through platforms, right? I'm of the opinion that NGOs and other such institutions need to be a lot more transparent to show people how and where that money is being used. You brought up that point. And it is that small factor that actually stops a lot of people who want to do good from not doing it at all. Because they feel that it's not going to be utilized in the right way.
So the good thing about these platforms is that they're completely public. This is not somebody coming to your house and asking for a check. It's out there. The amount of money being raised, or the number of signatures, on a pedestal is public.
Yeah.
And
You can take it forward to the point that she was making is that when I decided to work with a particular NGO, I went and did the due diligence. And I said, well, I got the
like a phone call with them.
I was constantly in touch with them. Even now with the ATGs, have the ATGs gone? Have people received it? Talking to people about, so the connection is still alive in many ways. And in fact, when I was in Mumbai, he's found out that I was coming, and he's like, "Oh, you're going to come and visit us because we want to see you face to face." So so that's the kind of relationship you build. But also, if you look at people who are behind you, because for every one of us sitting here, each one of us who's sitting here, I'm sure there are 100 people who've done the same thing who are not public. They've not used a public platform. So the challenge for organizations such as yours is that your target audience to say, hey, have a much more bigger platform. There is something much more bigger available to you. So when she was asking you about your challenges, I think you should put it on your red side of the saying get people who are doing a lot of work at the grassroots level and have them come and talk about it. Because they're not talking about it. They don't have a platform to things like these. I was very skeptical, not skeptical, but I didn't want to talk about what I've done once I've done it. And when Anurag asked me and Pratna reached out to me, I said, no, I don't want to do a video. No, I don't want to do an interview because I did my bit and I was out. I mean, I'm engaged from a back-end perspective, but I don't want to talk about it.
No, that's actually, I completely understand that because trying to find more stories and trying to get people to talk about it is a huge part of what we try to do. That's like an unlearning process that we make our campaigners go through again and again. And talking about reaching out to bigger, that's one of the reasons that we work with Ashoka as well, because we know that these guys are on ground and they know stories that we do not of, and that's why we get to meet brilliant change makers like him over and over again. I think the onus is on all of us to keep expanding the network of people that we have. I remember once somebody called me and said, there's this guy in Bangalore, he's running a school in a tiny village, and it's a school without teachers. That's the brief that I got. That was it. And when we got in touch with him, we realized he'd done so much more. He had like 15 students who were teaching themselves, and it was all open source, right? They were logging in on the internet, they were building like IoT devices, and I'm talking about a village. And from there, he took it to, I think, 2 more centers. He's now replicating the same program in Africa. That's how the conversation started. And it was one referral from somewhere. Somebody thought that we could come in, or you should just hear them out. And here is this guy doing, taking his idea to many more people. So it's a lot of those things put together, I think. And
Can I also sort of
So we're not letting you talk. So.
No. I just wanted to like Taruni earlier, burst the bubble about positivity. Just
I'm not a skeptic. I'm not a skeptic.
Even I'm not a skeptic. But for us to consider. From a constraint point of view, share the point that you raised. It's the moment is all like we've all experienced this. Sitting in a stationary train while another train is going past, we get the feeling that we are also moving. We are in a state of play where all notions of the old world has changed. We're in a new game, but our understanding of the new world is positioned from the old framework. So cognitive dissonance about living in this new world. And if you look at things that are changing around us, for instance, everything that got represented to us by a medium. So media as an example. The passive consumers, the media brings you the truth, you read the truth at home. Has changed. You don't need a medium. You don't need a teacher, a blackboard, and a classroom for learning. So everything that we knew as repetitive processes, every morning paper will drop at 8 o'clock, you will get your news then, or listen to All India Radio at 9. Everything that's repetition is changing to sort of fluid dynamism. The other thing is everything about few leaders, many followers is changing into a world where everyone is a leader. If in Vishnu's school, if he is not able to create leaders at all levels, they will not be able to do the kind of change making with ethical responsibility that we talked about. So I think the real constraints are our own inability to understand how fast the world is changing around us. So we literally live in a new game. And in that game, as platforms like BitGiving are deciding, once you put a platform out there, it is the users who are changing and evolving it, and they have no control over how it goes.
Yeah.
So I think these are sort of also important things to learn about. And when it at the root of it, when we put all of these conversations aside, change making is really about that internal shift. What is very different today is that one act of change making even challenges your own prejudices. It is it is the moral, the compass shifts within for us to really self-recognize ourselves. Oh, there is this ability which was not there before. So I really think, and that is not only individual, but it can happen at scale. One person touches and people here, and it's a scaled up work. So that's really what is happening. We are like almost on time. So I just wanted to sort of go around the room and get yourself. How do what did it do to you? What was your own internal shifts? What are those sort of prejudices and things that shifted in your own mind? Did you become more inclusive? Did you become more thoughtful? Did you become more mindful? Did your mind really open up to other kinds of energies? Did you think about yourself? Do you think about yourself as a different person, etc.? So what did it do to you when you did what you did?
I think it empowered me a lot. So the intent was always there, as I mentioned earlier, but to do it on your own and to take that step, you just needed a little nudge, and that's what I got from beginning. That's it. That's all I needed as a person. It's the same thing. I did feel very gratified, but now I know that if I want to make a change, all it takes is for you to put it out there. That's it. Put it out there and start nudging people and tell them, start. Some of you are familiar with Bangalore, but there's this place called Kurumangala, this area, and there are a bunch of students who keep asking for chanda. I told them, you standing here, I appreciate what you do, but you standing here is not going to, you need to look at you need to look at other platforms and other forums to get what you want right now. A lot of people who walk past are walking away from you because they are afraid that either you do something to them, and they basically don't want to give you any money. This is not the audience that you want. You need the audience that is going to understand what you're fighting for and what you're raising money for. Go online. You have the tools. You have your phones. You have a smartphone in your hand. What are you doing? Spread the word out. Go on platforms. Go do it. So because I was able to give this sound advice to him and make them do something, because I did it myself. And so you spread the word. You start telling other people, hey, listen, this is what I did. It worked. You go do it now. Don't stand here in a bunch of people and say, they're going to see kids like you every day and they're not going to trust you with your intent. Go on different platforms. So yeah, I just got a lot of confidence that this is a change that I can do. I can make any kind of positive change I wish to. So yeah.
Vishnu, we go like this? Yeah.
I think I feel that I don't have the answers. I feel like an idiot most of the time. I think it's a good thing. I think our problem with our society now, especially with WhatsApp and Facebook, especially the kind of divisive. We ran a campaign with the kids on stopping crackers. The kind of hate mails we as a school got from parents is shocking. I was like, this is a part of the community I'm part of. And we felt really let down. And it took about 3-4 days for my anger to simmer down around his parents. And then it's only that is a reason why we are hurt. And it's important to acknowledge that that group of people. Only then I'm going to find a solution. If I'm going to ignore that.
Campaigns that hurt all of us in the office the most, we deal with devastating news on a daily basis. You're constantly hearing about news that you can't do anything about. People are getting killed, they're getting maimed, they're getting raped, people are getting beaten up just for having a political opinion, and you can't do anything about it. And the fact that from just writing about it and outraging and saying, oh God, ye kaise ho gaya, what do we do about it? The fact that we could actually come up with something and then push individually a larger goal and then achieve it. So that somewhere I know, I'm not going to be able to stop other things from happening. But even the people around Choti Nirbhaya and her family will sit up and listen to the fact that, like she said, 100 people, 100 faceless, nameless people for them mostly, stood up and were standing with this child and her family when they were going through it. So obviously something wrong happened, something that we should prevent in the future, something that we should work towards. So I mean, just that little thing, it's I wouldn't call it a shift. I wouldn't say it's a tweak. I wouldn't say, because coming back to it, I think inherently all of us want to do something. It's just the idea that now there's another avenue open for us to do. So it's not just about how will I take time out from my job to go to that place where this child is. How do I donate money without making it feel like it's, you know,
You don't have any excuses anymore.
yeah, you don't. It's great. I mean, it's great that we don't have excuses anymore. It's fantastic.
And I think the point that everyone's bringing about is sustainability. So we're looking at sustainable futures for all of these communities that that we're serving, for all of the things that we'd like to change. Change is one thing. Sustainability is the next step that everyone's now looking at. And sustainability to the extent that I realize the value of water. I'm not going to waste water. Like, I'm washing a vessel, I'm going to be very frugal with things, I'm going to be austere with things. I have it all, so I don't want to be able to, you take it away. Leave some for people who don't have it. And you're not being, charitable in nature. This is what you should be doing. Consume how much you need. Yeah, that's it.
So I would like to repeat her words that it is empowering. So I feel empowered. Me here, most of my friends would be jealous, but it is in a positive way. It is empowering for them as well, because if I am sitting here, अब उनको लगेगा कि हाँ, that मतलब एक बंदा हमारा उधर गया है, वो बैठा है, तो ये हो सकता है. Now what are the challenges we are facing? कि I want to do this. People will not believe that this could be done, right? But I am sitting here. That means the empowerment would be in a geometric rate. मेरे से कुछ और लोग 10-15 लोग जो मेरे सर्कल में हैं, those people are in my team that would be empowered also.
So, frankly, I'm slightly troubled by change making. But by the easiness of it, by the refusal for people to engage in very difficult conversations, because change making is about having those difficult conversations, and I think there isn't space for that. So, for instance, if you look at the air quality, air pollution sort of campaigns and change making efforts in Delhi, it's about let's get a mask and all of that, which is all great. Let's get masks to school children. But the real difficult conversation is, is this how we are going to produce our energy through coal? Coal contributes one of the highest amounts of sort of pollution in Delhi. Yeah. Is the government going to do something about sort of, stubble burning at this time of the year? How are farmers being? These are difficult questions but these are questions that we need to be engaged with. There's no quick solution to it. And my real worry is, change making quickly morphs into an echo chamber where we do things, that are quickly achievable, but does not really bring in those difficult conversations. I think, therefore, there's a great ethical responsibility to really, focus on what's the outcome we want as society. So if we want clean air, what are the things that we want to do as society to get that clean air? So that's more than let's get an air purifier at home and let's have a mask for children to go to school and all of it. So that's and I think, those of us who recognize that and continuously push for that systemic outcome, that's really where the game is. And that's where media organizations are. I'm very glad, that organizations like Quit, etc., are sort of, focusing their attention on solutions journalism rather than saying, okay, we're just reporting the story. It's great. But it will be great if they open a solutions journalism lab and, invest it with reporters and funding and say, we are going to pick one issue and take it to, it takes 3 years, fine, we are going to do it for 3 years, This is a solutions journalism lab and we are going to push for that issue. It could be a small issue. So that's the kind of, sort of, how do we bring decision making to a point that decision making is for the greater good of all. That's really what change making should become eventually all about.
Um, I think I think answering the original question, which was what was the shift? What was the shift for me as an entrepreneur? Like I've said this before that when we started out, we didn't know what we were doing. You know, we saw a problem, we wanted a solution to it, and I think it's kind of humbling and it's kind of emotional to think about how things have moved in the last 3 years, or complete 3 years. And I think for us, the shift happens every day. And I talk on behalf of everybody in bit giving. Every time there is a win, or every time there is even one contribution coming in, every time there's a new campaign coming in, there's a new perspective. And there's so much that all of us learn every day. And there's so many stories that we get to be a part of. And I think they all add to it. They all add to what we are doing. And I think that's as people who are looking at coming up with solution platforms, it's very important to be able to talk about that as well.
I think the shift that has happened with me is that I constantly feel inspired by people. Like I just constantly, feel that there are so many strong voices out there. There are so many strong people out there who are trying to change one thing. And to be in that space where you see it, you take 10 steps backward and say, it's not like one person doing it. It's like the scale of it is so inspiring constantly. That I have gone from I was a cynic, and now I've gotten to that point where I really believe in people power. I believe that if enough people come together, they can bring about a change. They can get like the government to hear them. They can get the corporates on their knees. Anything is possible if everybody sort of speaks speaks the same language and is brought together. So I'm constantly inspired all the time by like strength of people, the distance that they're willing to go, the things that they're willing to compromise on a personal level just to bring about that change. So a huge shift.
Fantastic. I'll borrow that word. Inspiring isn't at a macro level. It was an inspiring experience, very humbling experience. But I would like to talk about how I changed as a person, how it changed me as a person. And there were two shifts. So one was internal and the other very external, which was visible to me and hopefully to others. So internally, I definitely got rid of a few prejudices, including that to my own profession, that if people, who are lawyers can also devote time and money. But on a serious note, it was very humbling. To be able to see what was touching people. We were talking about value, the connect of, if what you're doing is connected to the value system of the person out there, they are much more comfortable in reaching out to you. So that was a very big aha. On the external front, I saw a shift in my credibility. I could see in people's eyes that they think of me as a credible person. So the whole experience was, okay, I'm not just one of, as Vishnu said, not one of those couch opinion makers, just kind of writing stuff on Facebook or WhatsApp, but she went out and did something. So the next time I write, or even if I'm just stating an opinion, I actually see that in the responses I get. So that was a big, very nice experience. I thought that was very cool.
So, I read this statement somewhere that when the burden of remaining the same becomes more than the burden of changing, that's when you actually change, right?
Nice.
And yeah, I just saw it online somewhere talking about all the internet, etc. So I think that for me was has been a reason, right? Where you realize that you just cannot, like the burden of staying the same and maintaining the status quo is just too much. And I think just also wanted to pick up on what Shashi said is that it's also really important then to start seeing whether you're going to. I think one of the internal shifts also is that whether you want to see it as a piecemeal thing that you want to do, or is it a large scale change that you want to create, right? And I think that mindset shift is actually had that question, but like I couldn't ask it in the during the conversation. But how do you ensure that as a society, more and more people are thinking about it not as a piecemeal thing, but as a more systemic change, long-term solution to problems, and having those difficult conversations and really getting to the root of the issue. So yeah, I think those two things.
Vanita?
Oh, okay. Well, I am really amazed with all so much of positive people around me. And although I am not part of the bid giving, as I said earlier, but obviously in my little terms, I had been doing a little bit of, giving out way back in Assam. And it is basically a family oriented because like one of my aunt has expired of ALS. All right, so out there, we just after a little bit of research, we have found out that ALS in India is a very old disease. In fact, like now we have come out with like knowing about this, the ice bucket theory or whatever. But ALS had been in India for a long, long time. So what we have started off is that we have started off with a center, to donate and maybe to educate the people in the area what exactly is ALS, the disease is all about, and and it affects as early as a 10-year-old kid. But may the process is slightly longer than like someone who has got the disease when she's or he is around 50 years. So that education is a requirement, so which we have started off. And also we are also thinking in terms of having like what you are doing, a daycare center for the old people, like kind of a crèche or something like that. And I come from a family of doctors. In fact, like even my parents, they are associated from the pharmaceutical line. So and plus my in-laws are both doctors, and my mother-in-law is a psychiatric doctor who runs a school for the spastic society. So that way also I'm slightly on the compassionate side for those special child. And plus my husband is a singer by profession, like that's his hobby in fact. And through that also he tries to bring in a little bit of charity to help some fellow musicians. Like I could say an example, like one of the keyboardists, of some very well-known keyboardist, his name was Nupur. Like he had leukemia, but he did not have the money, to go for his medication and all. Then one day, I still remember that day, like around 11 o'clock, my husband comes back, literally crying. I said, "What happened?" He said, "Nupur has leukemia." I said, "So, what's next?" He said, "No, we need to do something for him because he comes from a society who doesn't have his father, and he was a very young guy when he had this disease." So I said, like, what do you want to do ahead with that? So let's see. We have a musician society. Let's see what we go ahead with. Then over the time, within a span of I think 20 days, he reached out to all the musicians in Assam, including Jubin Garg, if someone has heard him, and Papon also. All sang for free, and even the chief minister had also been invited. He also had given a little bit of lump sum, but I'm not sure like whether that has actually come into Nupur's account or not. But still, overnight they had been able to raise 6 lakhs and give it to Nupur. So that is what, like, when I'm hearing about your success stories, I'm in my back of my mind, I can just imagine, like, yes, like there are people who in fact, do a little bit and still, like, yeah, because like I'll say like Jubin Garg, like he's a well-known singer, or maybe as a very young, talented tabla player who also had performed there. For Jubin Garg, it is easy to, give a charity show. But for the tabla player, the mere thought of coming in auto rickshaw with all his equipments and like playing for free, it must have cost that. That is his way of giving out. That's what you have said about the coffee thing. So it is so positive about this, and but yeah, like there are few people, as you said, like flood, like you're giving away old clothes. That is a old stigma that, like, people have, like you don't want the clothes, why waste it, just give it for people who can wear it. But that is slightly over the time, it is coming away, going away, in fact, like so it's Nice. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Sonia, for bringing me in.
Okay, Anamika, now I think you close. Why don't you close it? And Pratna is
Yes.
yes.
No, it's really inspiring. I mean, hearing everybody, have their own inspirational story behind it, and then you said like the first tea conversation we had. After that, I had friends coming in and saying that how do we go about doing this, And everybody's so lost. I mean, they want to do it, like everybody just said. They want to do it, but they don't know how to go about it. So I think it's a great way. For me, it's so inspiring. I mean, I think I go back recharged completely, like thinking that, but for me, I know it's a question of taking the action, and I know Ishita's going to help me with that. So I think it's a great way of letting people know that there are ways to go about it, and there's a channel. It's systematic, as you all said. It's just fantastic. Being able to connect, having a platform, and being able to connect, and I take that back with me.
And thank you, Anamika, for actually starting this. I think all of us have been talking about it in our own ways for a very long time. That we have these conversations one-to-one, and that's exactly what Shashi and we've discussed the first time we met Anamika. We keep having these conversations. Nothing comes out of it, and there's no solution out of it. It's just this is my solution, this is yours.
Right.
The tea room conversations is to get people from all sorts of different backgrounds to come in and talk about their experiences, and then take something back. And I hope you guys took something back as well. And I'll let Shashi talk about the bigger vision and other things.
No, I just think we are running out of time, and so we'll ask Pratna. You've been sort of doing all the tweeting and all of that, so please share your thoughts and help us close the second conversation.
So I think after listening to everyone and the fact that every day I get to read stories or hear of things that people are doing on ground which probably would have never come to the forefront had there not been any online platform for them to bring forward their stories. So just being part of those stories, be it just helping them out, put out their story in a better way, or be able to fundraise for their initiatives, it makes me happy to be just a part of their journey and empowering people who we can help in whatever way we can, and just taking the battle forward for them or being torchbearers for them is a fulfilling experience in itself. So I think that's what this entire experience has been for me, and I just grow every day in terms of the things that I get to learn while being a campaigner and just guiding people on that.
Lovely. Thank you. So I think this brings us to the close of the second edition of the Tea Room Conversation, and hopefully next month we will be able to come back with another interesting topic and another set of people talking about this. So join us again next month. Till then, so long.